They said the flames were small. Just a piece of paper, they told her. No harm done. But Naomi knew better. She stood there, keys still in hand, watching her own mother toss the last scrap of what she believed was $1 million lottery check into a trash can fire. Her father didn't flinch. Her brother didn't blink. And that's when Naomi laughed, not because it was funny, but because something inside her had finally broken loose. What kind of family sets fire to your future, just to claim it for themselves? That was the night Naomi Carter stopped hoping they'd ever see her. And that, my friend, is where this story begins. Naomi Carter didn't grow up poor, but she did grow up overlooked. In a modest house on the east side of Savannah, Georgia, she learned early that love in her family came with conditions, and most of those conditions had a name: Derek. Derek was the firstborn, the chosen son, the one who got the best cuts of meat, the newest sneakers, and the benefit of every doubt. Naomi? She learned to make do with silence. Her victories weren't framed on the walls. They were folded into quiet corners of her own private resolve. She didn't complain. She worked. And when life gave her a glimmer of something better, she never expected that the ones who claimed to love her would try so hard to snatch it away. Naomi learned the language of second place long before she could spell it. When she was 8, she watched her parents remortgage the house to buy Derek a drum kit he never learned to play. They called it an investment in his creativity. When Naomi asked for a calculator for her math class, they told her to wait for Christmas. She didn't ask twice. By middle school, she'd figured out how to sew buttons and fix toasters, not out of passion, but necessity. No one was coming to save her. Meanwhile, Derek coasted through those years like a prince in a borrowed kingdom. Knocking over pillars, Naomi would be asked, again and again, to quietly rebuild. In high school, he crashed the family car, twice. Naomi got her license late, not from laziness, but because their insurance tripled after Derek's accidents. She walked to her after-school job and saved for a used bicycle. At family dinners, Derek's C-minuses were a tough semester, while Naomi's straight A's were expected. She didn't grow bitter, she grew deliberate. There's a kind of strength that comes from being unnoticed, when no one's watching your climb, only your fall. And Naomi? She intended to make both silent. But silence, she would later learn, has a cost, especially when you start winning. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that looks exactly like the one before it. Gray, routine, and quietly unremarkable. Naomi had worked a long shift at the hospital's billing department. She was drained, eyes sore from spreadsheets, feet aching from hours of pacing between copier and desk. As she stood at the gas station pump, counting how much she could afford to put in her tank until Friday, a voice inside whispered something odd. Just one ticket. Not a voice she recognized. Just a flicker of impulse. She had exactly $2 left in cash, so she slid it across the counter. The clerk, a boy who couldn't have been more than 19, grinned like it was an inside joke. "Might be your lucky day," he said. That ticket sat in her wallet for almost a full day before she remembered it. She'd been microwaving leftover spaghetti, phone in one hand, scrolling through news about the rising cost of rent. The TV in the corner of her apartment was background noise until the lottery numbers flashed across the screen. Naomi paused mid-bite. She fished the ticket out and compared. The first number matched. So did the second. By the time the fourth digit appeared, she was standing. After the sixth, she was holding her breath. Her hands trembled as she cross-referenced again and again, convinced it must be a mistake. It wasn't. Naomi Carter had just won $2.5 million. She didn't scream. She didn't jump. She just sat back down on her worn-out couch and stared at the glowing television screen like it had spoken a language only she understood. After 10 minutes, she got up, found a Ziploc bag, and slipped the ticket inside. Then she slid it into the middle pages of her old copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, a book that had carried her through harder seasons, a book no one ever touched but her. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed, mind racing, not with visions of yachts or red carpets, but with something more delicate, silence. The kind that follows long labor. The kind of silence that feels like standing on the edge of something that might finally hold. And then came the fear. Not of losing the money, but of who would come for it. Naomi had built her life carefully, privately. She knew windfalls drew storms. She knew generosity, once given, became a contract you couldn't rewrite. So she did what she always did. She called the one person who never asked for anything, her best friend, Lena. And she whispered the truth. Not for celebration, but for witness. Because when you spend your whole life in someone else's shadow, even the light can feel dangerous. The next Sunday, Naomi did what she always did. She showed up. Dinner at her parents' house wasn't a joyful ritual, but it was a predictable one. Once a month, she brought a pie no one asked for, and endured questions no one really cared to hear the answers to. This time was different. She arrived early, helping her mother slice green beans, trying to ignore the rising tide inside her chest. She hadn't told them yet. Not about the ticket, not about the win. Not about the tectonic shift happening silently beneath her calm demeanor. She told herself it was only fair, that despite everything, they were still her family. Her mother glanced at her, brow furrowed. "You look different today. What's going on at work?" Naomi smiled faintly. "You could say something happened. Let's wait for everyone to sit down." That unease, the one she'd lived with her whole life, returned the moment Derek walked in, 20 minutes late, wearing cologne too heavy and confidence too loud. Her father greeted him with the same phrase he always used, "There's our boy." Naomi was halfway through setting the table when the comment came. "Don't forget the wine," her mother added. "Derek had a rough week." They sat. Naomi exhaled. Then, with a steady voice and a heart pounding so hard she feared they could hear it, she spoke. "I have some news. I won the lottery." "The state lottery. I matched all 6 numbers. It's 2.5 million. For a moment the room froze. Forks hung mid-air. Then came the chorus of disbelief, followed by an eruption of excitement. Her mother actually rose from her seat and hugged her, an act so rare, Naomi stiffened. But before the warmth could settle, her father turned to Derek. "Son, this could really help get you out of that bind." Naomi's spine straightened. Derek, always quick on the draw, gave a practiced half-smile. "I mean, if you were planning on helping family, I wouldn't say no." No questions about what she wanted. No congratulations on her discipline, her sacrifices, her life built brick by quiet brick. Only the expectation. Only the grab. Her mother chimed in, "You've always said we should stick together. Family helps family." Naomi stared at the table. Her wine glass caught the light just so, reflecting a truth she had long refused to say aloud. "Have you ever asked what I want?" she said softly. Silence. She glanced up. No one met her eyes. And in that moment, Naomi understood. They hadn't gathered to celebrate her. They'd come to collect. The calls began the next morning, early, persistent, and layered with false warmth. Naomi's phone rang at 7:16 a.m. Her mother's name lit up the screen. She let it go to voicemail. Then came another. And another. By 8 o'clock, Naomi had 5 missed calls, 2 from her father, 1 from a number she didn't recognize. The voicemails all started the same way, cheerful greetings strained through tight smiles. But as they went on, their tone sharpened. Her father's voice was clipped. "Your mother's upset. We need to talk about next steps. This isn't just about you, Naomi." Her mother's messages vacillated between guilt and passive aggression. "I know you're overwhelmed, sweetheart, but don't let money change who you are. We raised you better." Then Derek chimed in with a text that made Naomi pause. "Hey sis, no pressure. Just wanted you to see the breakdown I put together. Spreadsheets showing what I need to get out of debt and get back on track. Totally cool if you want to go over it together. Love you." There was even a red heart emoji at the end. Like that softened the weight of the ask. Naomi sat at her tiny kitchen table, phone face down, heart sinking. This wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. The affectionate dinner had been a transaction. Their interest had a number. She took a long breath and turned to what grounded her. Facts. She called the financial advisor the Lottery Commission had recommended. A woman named Ms. Templeton answered, calm and competent. They scheduled a meeting for the next day. "Don't worry," the advisor said gently. "This kind of thing happens more often than you'd like to believe." That afternoon, Naomi took a walk through her neighborhood. Brick sidewalks, shaded oaks, wind moving slowly through Spanish moss. She needed air, needed space. But even there, in the quiet hum of her city, the thoughts followed her. What had once been a dream now carried a bitter edge. Not because of the money, but because of what it revealed. The love she'd spent years trying to earn had always been conditional. When she returned home, there was another message waiting. A group text from her mother, looping in Derek and their father. "We'll all be at our place tomorrow at 7 to talk about how this blessing can serve the whole family. Naomi, please bring any paperwork so we understand the timeline." Naomi stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered. Then she typed, "I won't be attending. My financial decisions are mine alone." She hit send before she could reconsider. The response came within seconds. Her father called. When she declined, a voicemail landed. "Your behavior is completely unacceptable. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Turning your back on your own brother?" His voice cracked near the end. Whether from rage or disappointment, Naomi couldn't tell. She pressed her palms into her eyes, felt the heat rising behind them, then stood and walked to her bedroom. In the bottom drawer of her nightstand was a notebook, leather-bound, pages mostly blank. She opened to a new page and wrote in bold ink, "I am not responsible for other people's consequences. I am allowed to choose peace." And for the first time since the numbers matched, Naomi felt a flicker of something steady, something that looked, just maybe, like power. The knock at her door wasn't loud, but it was deliberate. Naomi's chest tightened before her feet moved. She hadn't told anyone she'd be home. All week she'd been staying at Lena's apartment, returning now only to grab a stack of work files. It was mid-afternoon on a Thursday. She had hoped for silence. She opened the door cautiously. Her father stood tall and rigid. Her mother, lips pursed, arms crossed. Derek kept his hands deep in his hoodie pockets, eyes shifting, like he knew he shouldn't be there. "We need to talk," her father said. Naomi stepped aside. Her apartment was small, orderly, clean in a way that warned boundary, not invitation. As soon as they entered, her mother's eyes began scanning the space, judging perhaps how far Naomi had come without them. Her father cleared his throat. "This has gone on long enough. You've had your time to think. Now we need to discuss how your winnings will support the family." Naomi walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. She didn't answer. "We're not here to fight," her mother said quickly. "But Derek's business is in trouble. He needs help." "I didn't drown," Derek cut in. "I was pulled under." Naomi sipped calmly. "And what exactly are you asking from me?" Derek stepped forward, pulling a folded paper from his hoodie. 80,000. Clears the debt. Gives me a chance to rebuild. That's nothing to you now." She looked at him. "Like the last bar? Or the streetwear brand? Or the food truck?" His eyes dropped. "This is different." Naomi turned to her parents. "You're asking me to forget everything I lived through. The jobs, the bills, the silence. While Derek failed upward, I made survival look easy. And now that I have something, you expect me to hand it over." Her mother tensed. "Don't be dramatic. We supported you too." Naomi didn't flinch. "Then name one sacrifice you made for me." The room fell heavy. Her father's jaw clenched. "You're being ungrateful." "No," Naomi said, her voice even. "I'm being honest." Her mother stepped forward, voice soft. "We're not asking for everything. Just what's fair." Naomi walked to the door, opened it slowly. "What's fair," she said, "is me finally choosing myself." No one argued. They left, and Naomi turned the deadbolt twice, like it was punctuation. They didn't stop calling. Naomi changed her number. Then her parents began emailing. Long messages filled with spiritual quotes, veiled reproaches, and guilt-drenched language dressed up as concern. Derek, in contrast, sent one-liners. "I know you didn't mean to turn your back on us. Still think we're family no matter what. I need you to see what this is doing to Mom." Naomi didn't respond. She forwarded each message to a folder she labeled Archive Emotional Pressure. And then one day, the emails stopped. It was Lena who told her first. "They sold the house." Naomi blinked. "What?" Lena's eyes softened. "Your parents." "Apparently to cover Derek's debts. The bar lease, the liquor license fines, back taxes. It was a mess." Naomi stood frozen. "They sold the only equity they had left? They didn't tell you?" Naomi shook her head slowly. Her stomach sank. "They weren't supposed to need to." Weeks passed. Naomi went about her days with quiet efficiency. She moved into a short-term rental with security at the front desk and blackout curtains in every room. But then the second call came, this time from the hospital. Her father had collapsed. Stress-related complications, high blood pressure, possible minor stroke. Her mother, now staying with friends, sounded brittle on the phone. We didn't know who else to call. Naomi arrived at the hospital with no flowers, no apology, no grand gestures, just a quiet bag of necessities and a black notebook in which she'd scribbled his medications, upcoming follow-up visits, and dietary restrictions. She didn't stay overnight, but she returned each day. She coordinated with the nurses. She brought a second pair of slippers when his first went missing. Her mother never thanked her. Derek never showed up. Naomi didn't explain herself. She wasn't there to mend. She was there because someone had to be. There's a difference between love and obligation. Naomi understood that now. But there was still a deeper truth blooming beneath her calm. Forgiveness wasn't a feeling. It was a choice you repeated until it stopped hurting. And even if her voice remained cold, her actions spoke louder. Because no matter how far they'd pushed her, Naomi had never stopped being the one who showed up when it mattered most. The house looked smaller than she remembered. The shutters were faded, the porch sagged slightly, and the mailbox still leaned left, bent from the time Derek backed into it and never fixed it. Naomi sat in her car across the street, engine off, watching the home that had held so much silence. It had already been sold once, and now, through the bank's listing, it was back on the market, empty. Unloved, unwanted, like a chapter someone tried to close but left smeared in the margins. She didn't call her parents to ask. She didn't even tell Lena. Naomi met with the realtor alone. Signed the paperwork quietly, paid in full, no mortgage. No ceremony. When the keys dropped into her hand, she didn't feel triumph. She felt the gravity of unfinished business. Instead of moving in, Naomi went room by room. She cleaned, repaired hinges, had the plumbing redone, repainted the living room walls a soft honey color, warmer than they'd ever been when she lived there. She replaced the broken stove, installed grab bars in the bathroom, added a new bed in the master bedroom with a firm mattress. Everything practical. Everything with purpose. When it was done, she wrote a short note and left it on the kitchen counter. No grand message. Just a few lines written in her careful print. The house is yours again. You don't owe me rent. You don't owe me anything. I won't be living here. But now you have a place to stay. And to think. That's all. She left the envelope with the deed, the keys, and the utility login information. Naomi didn't wait for a reaction. She handed the keys to her father's nurse with quiet instruction. Deliver it when he's discharged. Then she walked out, back to her own apartment, and never looked back. She didn't need them to thank her. She didn't even need them to understand. But something inside her knew. They would. Maybe not now. Maybe not soon. But one night, when the lights flickered on in that old kitchen, and her mother ran her hand across the new counter, maybe then. That house had never been a home to Naomi. But she left it behind better than she found it. And sometimes, that's the only apology we get to write. Naomi sat alone on the balcony of her apartment, a mug of chamomile cooling between her palms. The city below pulsed in soft amber, car lights threading through the streets like distant fireflies. She wasn't thinking about money, not the investments, not the accounts, not even the zeros. What occupied her mind now was quieter and far more difficult to price. She had bought her parents a home. She had shown up at the hospital. She had done all the things a good daughter was supposed to do, and yet she didn't feel whole. Not resentful, not angry, just hollow. It was the kind of hollowness that doesn't echo, the kind that settles in your ribs like dust. Naomi had spent decades yearning to be seen. Not praised, not glorified, just seen. But the truth she couldn't ignore was this. Even when she gave everything, they still didn't look at her with wonder, only with expectation. She stared out over the rooftops and whispered to no one, "Was I ever enough before I gave?" A breeze moved through her hair, like a hand trying to comfort her. Somewhere below, a child laughed, and Naomi smiled, not because she felt peace, but because she'd finally stopped waiting for someone else to hand it to her. She pulled her notebook from the small side table and opened to a blank page. In the quiet of that moment, she wrote, "Love should not need a receipt. Family should not require debt. Silence should not be the cost of keeping the peace." She underlined the last one twice. Because Naomi understood now. Peace that demanded your silence was never peace at all. It was compliance. She didn't know what came next. There was no roadmap for daughters who survive quiet wars. No parade for women who say no softly but mean it with their whole chest. But she knew this. She would not return to the person who asked for scraps. She would not negotiate her worth again. And if one day they did see her, truly see her. It would not be because she'd bought their attention. It would be because she'd finally stopped needing it. The classroom wasn't much, just a borrowed space in the back of a community center, walls covered with mismatched posters about credit scores and job interviews. But Naomi stood at the front like it was a cathedral. Folding chairs filled slowly, young adults in their 20s, some older, notebooks in their laps, eyes uncertain. They didn't know who she was. Not really. Just that a woman named Naomi Carter had funded the program, and now she was teaching the workshop herself. She didn't start with money. She started with silence. "I grew up believing that asking for help made you weak," she said softly, looking not at the students but just past them, into the space where her younger self might have sat. "I thought if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, gave enough, eventually someone would make space for me." No one moved. One girl adjusted her hoodie, eyes locked on Naomi's face. "But money doesn't fix what silence breaks. It only shows you how deep the cracks run." She walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. "So let's start there, not with budgets, not with numbers, but with voice. Because if you don't learn to speak your needs, someone will always speak over them." After class, a young man approached her. Late teens, polite but wary. "Miss Carter," he said, "how'd you learn all this stuff?" Naomi smiled. "I didn't. Not at first. I learned how it feels to be invisible. Then I learned that visibility is a decision." That night, back in her apartment, Naomi stood barefoot in her kitchen, music low, onions sizzling in the pan. Lena was coming over. She was bringing peach pie. Naomi poured 2 glasses of wine and looked around, not at the furniture or the view, but at the space she had claimed. She wasn't waiting for approval anymore. Not from family, not from strangers. She had built something, not flashy, not loud, but hers. Honest, earned. She stepped outside, felt the night air on her skin, and closed her eyes. Because the greatest wealth Naomi Carter had ever known wasn't the money. It was this: the right to choose herself, and the courage to do it, even when no one clapped.